Both Peridot and Lapis had some big hair in this episode. Apparently something went wrong. Their hair was supposed to be way larger. The meager expansion of hair we got did not live up to the intended vision. In all seriousness, Same Old World was, nice, I guess? It was alright. It was quite pleasant at times, but overall, my verdict would be that it was just okay. The episode packs plenty of charm and whimsy, but I found its shortcoming to be the characterization of Lapis. She was just too bland overall, and her personality ended up feeling like a mishmash of various characteristics. She didn't come across like a well-defined character to me. While Lapis carried Steven on her shoulders, Steven is the one who carries this episode. His dialogue is excellent, and his narration of the world is cute yet poignant, and done in such a manner that is so indicative of the sort of character Steven is. Lapis, on the other hand, felt like a blank slate for most of the journey. The fart noises toward Jersey made for a cute moment since it harked back to when Lapis and Steven first met, but most of the time Lapis had this blank and vacant expression. Yeah, she's there more to hang out with Steven, who's pretty much her one and only friend, rather than actually being interested in scouting out the Earth, but that dynamic doesn't stop Lapis from being kinda boring. Steven was a total joy to watch and listen to, but Lapis was just there. The events in Same Old World coalesce around Lapis's backstory. Steven showing Lapis how everything is in a state of flux and flow contrasts against the trapped sameness that Lapis had been subjugated to for thousands of years. Her backstory was the anchor around which the rest of the episode's themes get to play out. Her backstory, though, just wasn't that great. As soon as Lapis began her tale, I knew exactly how the rest of the story was going to unfold. There were no twists or turns to it. It ended up feeling like a default template of a story. I really hope this isn't all there is to Lapis's past. With Lapis's backstory being currently what it is, despising the crystal gems while not having any grudge toward Homeworld makes little sense. Yeah, the crystal gems initiated the war that incidentally led to her getting poofed and mistaken for an enemy, but it's Homeworld that failed to realize she wasn't an enemy, and it's Homeworld that also ended up abandoning her as well. Lapis did remain trapped in the mirror while under the custody of the crystal gems, probably because they saw her as a former enemy who no longer had autonomy as a tool, but that's the same situation as when she was in the custody of Homeworld, and it's really doubtful they would have treated her any different if they didn't drop her on that day that they fled. Lapis should have rage for both the crystal gems and Homeworld. She should feel betrayed and abandoned by both sides, by the empire that imprisoned her as a mirror due to its own incompetency, and by the rebellious faction that initiated the war and didn't free her from the mirror long after the war was over. Instead, Lapis's rage feels kinda haphazard. Back in the episode Ocean Gem, the mystery and intrigue behind Lapis and her past made her lack of real characterization a non-issue, and in Jailbreak, everything was climaxing so damn hard that I didn't have a problem with Lapis's last-minute sacrifice. In my mind, I simply thought we would wait until Lapis returns in a more central role, and then her personality, perspectives, and ideologies can become more fleshed out, making her behavior in earlier episodes retroactively more profound and interesting to analyze. Instead, with this backstory, Lapis just ended up feeling like a stunted character. This episode didn't provide the proper context to retroactively flesh out her past actions, nor did it manage to lay the groundwork for her new identity going forward. Lapis feels exactly the same as right after Steven healed her all those episodes ago. Speaking of Ocean Gem, Lapis getting poofed could have been portrayed a bit better. I get that this is a simplified retelling of past events, but Lapis is one of the strongest gems we've seen in the show who can fly at will. Even if she didn't have access to external water sources to manipulate, it feels odd to make her a complete sitting duck, an impassive observer who only tried to fly away when it was already too late. She shouldn't be the sort of character who acts like a helpless non-entity, and yet this is how the flashback portrayed her. I wasn't very fond of that. I did find all the little details during the backstory really intriguing though. Who was this awesome looking gem that punched out Lapis? Considering how we know so few gems beyond our main cast, it's really easy to single out Bismuth, the gemstone in Lion's Mane. The hair color matches the color variation seen in actual Bismuth, and in this very episode Lion was missing and Steven made a joke I felt somewhat uneasy about.
Whoops, I dropped it and it fell out of existence.
as if this was some sort of ominous foreshadowing in the form of dramatic irony or something. I'm probably reading way too much into that, and I also don't really like this hypothesis at all. It just feels way too on the nose. But otherwise, I got no idea who this gem is, and it just might simply be a gem we are not familiar with yet, and that's all there is to it. But another detail to get intrigued over, when all the homeworld gems are leaving this gigantic flash, what is that? Is this simply the activation of a huge mothership the homeworld gems are all fleeing into space on? Is it homeworld firing some sort of weapon at the Earth as their last parting act? Something else entirely? Just what was this? Normally, I'd be super happy if exposition dumps simultaneously provided interesting little details in the background to get excited and mull over. In the context of Lapis's backstory though, what ends up happening is that I forget about Lapis altogether because my attention is elsewhere. While Lapis is recounting her sad past and how traumatic it all was, I'm just freaking out over this rainbow-haired gem and this blast of light, completely unfazed by the emotional burden Lapis is finally unloading off her chest. I'm supposed to care for Lapis, I'm supposed to feel bad for her, to connect with her, and instead, I'm mostly ignoring this predictable backstory that failed to grip me emotionally because these little background details are far more fascinating to me. When a story fails to immerse a viewer, tantalizing the viewer with little lore details makes the story feel even less interesting due to the juxtaposition that arises. Speaking of juxtaposition, you have no idea how happy I was when Peridot made her appearance towards the end of the episode. I actually wasn't expecting to holler and jeer as Peridot brashly and pompously walked into the shot, but I did. And that moment just made me realize yet again how little this episode made me care for Lapis. And don't get me wrong, while I thought Lapis was underdeveloped because she didn't have that much screen time, I liked her before. It's just that in this specific episode, I didn't find her interesting at all. At the time of recording this review, I still haven't seen Barnmates yet, so I'm really eager to see if the bland taste Lapis left in my mouth in this episode can be reversed when she gets to interact with Peridot. Ever since the start of the Peridemption, Peridot has been a total joy to watch. Her interactions with any member of the cast have been awesome from the perspective of either character. I hope this trend continues and that Lapis will be interesting or fun to watch in the next episode due to the presence of Peridot. In the end, Same Old World was still a pleasant episode. It was quite soothing to see Lapis and Steven fly together and bond, but that bonding didn't feel novel. This episode was supposed to reintroduce us to Lapis, to get us to know her better, to prepare us for her continued involvement in the series going forward, but I personally think it failed to suitably accomplish that goal. Same Old World was sometimes cute, sometimes fun, sometimes charming, but it failed to deliver the important emotional impact where it matters.